I don't think we're going to get what we wanted with these mass deportations. It seems impossible. They can't even decide on who to deport or if we should deport everyone.
Couldn't ICE just go wait outside of Home Depot? And then when all the, I mean.
It would make sense.
Well, they're already there.
I know, I'm just going.
They're on the outside, actually.
I mean, I think, politics is compromised, unfortunately. So there's probably a lot of pressure on Trump to try to compromise on these points because if they do try to round up masses of people, that will be further feeding into the narrative of tyranny, police state, which is what they tried to get Trump to engage in with the riots in LA and other places. Was, it was a bait to try to get him to look like the dictator that they say that he is, which is all kind of ridiculous. But I mean, there's no easy answer because it is the Kalergi Plan. If you read Kudenov Kalergi himself, which I've read the book, I'm going to lecture through that very soon. That's the Royal Society plan that the elites accepted about 100 years ago, and they decided that would be the best way to reorganize all of Western civilization societies from Europe to the U.S. as well. So it's.
Can you break that down a little bit? Because
it's just weaponized migration. That's it.
Yeah, but explain what that means, because a lot of it seems like we all know that the migrants are coming here because of climate change, right? So the ice caps melted. By the way, I want to remind you, an iceberg took down the Titanic. Early life check, berg. You know what I mean? Destructive forces those bergs can be. Anyway, that my jokes are terrible, but obviously tell us that. But you're saying, and we all know it is intentional. Sydney, London, Paris are now less than 50% white. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But what the weaponized why? Like I think that a lot of people never hear why don't they want white people to have a homeland?
Well, there was a banking elite out of the EU. His name was Summers, and he spoke either to the Telegraph or the Guardian maybe 10 years ago about how they would utilize weaponized migration to completely change the demographics of Europe so that it could then be Islamicized. Mm-hmm. And so that's by design. And in fact, you had the Fabian Society talking about this back in the 1920s in the UK. So people like Bertrand Russell, people like Alice Bailey, people who weren't necessarily Muslims, but they believed that they could utilize Islam as a chess piece, really change the makeup of the society so that it could then be transitioned into the future projections of technocracy and so forth. Same idea with America. It's a little more difficult to completely Islamicize it, but it is easier to utilize the populations that are directly below us through, what was originally NAFTA and free trade was the secret plan for open borders to get people from down there up here. That didn't really work, but now it's just after the Biden administration, it was just full on open borders. Remember Biden saying, come up here. If you're down there, come up here. They even had programs incentivizing people in Latin and South America to come up here. Mm-hmm. Immediate jobs, EBT, truck driving, all of that.
Phones, too. They were giving phones.
Exactly.
What's it, HAIS or HIAS? What's it called?
HIAS is one of the so that is a strategy. It's not accidental. You also had Catholic Charities heavily involved in that, too. So
did you see the administrators of the Catholic organizations? They're a bunch of icebergs. That's true.
Well, and that's why, like, when people who are criticized for being white nationalists, they come after us and say, well, you're calling for genocide then for black and brown people. And it's like, well, no, because the implication here that they're not, that they're missing is that this is an inorganic importation of blacks and browns. So this is not like, we have a few of them coming over and they can coexist with white people, or if they do come here, they have to assimilate. It's like, this is completely inorganic. This should not be happening. It would not have happened if it weren't for these intentional movements to get them here. And, there's a lot of different, theories behind why that is. Of course, the Kalergi Plan, and there's other forces at play. I won't say exactly which group of, which ethnic group is behind this, perhaps.
Well, they're Jewish.
Jewish, right? Yeah. No, yeah. But and the reality is, if those things were not in place, America would be a lot more white than it is. And that's what we mean when we say we don't want we want a white country. We don't mean we want to get rid of every single black and brown that is here. Like that wouldn't even be possible. It's just that we want to, maintain the European aspect of this country, the European roots, the European heritage in this country. that's what America is. And so but you get slandered when you say that, of course, because people make it sound like you want everybody else to die, and that's not true. It's fighting the inorganic process that's happening. And unfortunately, people like Trump, obviously the president, he is getting pressure clearly to back down a little bit on that. And that's what we were worried about since day one of the campaign.
Yeah, there's also a sleight of hand here to, we're taught that, America is unique because it's, quote unquote, a melting pot, which another early life check on the one who came up with that term.
We found out he was a theater major.
Okay.
We found out there's a lot of these people, because, actors change their names.
Sure.
So it turns out there's a lot of theatrical people changing their names.
Interesting.
I know, who would have known? Anyway, that's a small
Yeah,
fact.
but there's a sleight of hand with this because, I talk to friends who are Brits, and what's interesting is like they're told the exact same thing as we're told as Americans. And it's like, okay, Brits unquestionably have a cultural heritage, right? But they're being told the same things that we're being told about how America is this unique, it's ontologically unique in the sense that it's a melting pot. Well, then why are the Brits being told that? Because England certainly isn't that. So it's just a sleight of hand that you start to see with the narratives.